Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Israel vows to destroy Gaza City if conditions not met. The conflict intensifies with a stark threat. North Korean support for Ukraine conflict, a complex and evolving situation. Russia's influence continues to shape the conflict's dynamics. Powell signals potential rate cuts amid trade developments. Economic shifts are impacting monetary policy decisions. EU-US trade deal developments and discrepancies. Trade relations remain strained between major powers. Alligator, Alcatraz. Judge orders closure of Trump's Migrant Detention Center. Legal challenges persist regarding the detention facility. FBI conducts search at John Bolton's home amid renewed investigation. Political investigations continue to gain momentum. Trump's civil fraud penalty overturned by appeals court. Legal battles over financial penalties remain active. The Supreme Court allows Trump to block $783 million in NIH grants. Judicial rulings impact funding for scientific research. Habba's U.S. attorney appointment challenged. Rising concerns about administration's practices. Questions arise regarding ethical standards within the Justice Department. U.S. visa review intensified scrutiny of foreign holders. Security concerns are driving heightened scrutiny of immigration. Trump visits U.S. Park Police. Reinforces support amid security concerns. Political messaging focuses on national security issues. Trump's judicial appointments, a strategy focused on conservative succession. The appointment process reflects a clear ideological direction. Thaksin acquitted in royal insult case. Facing further legal challenges, legal proceedings continue against the former leader. China condemns U.S. tariffs, advocates India-China cooperation. Geopolitical tensions are impacting international relations. Israel vows to destroy Gaza City if conditions not met. Recent developments surrounding the Israel-Hamas conflict reveal a heightened urgency and escalating tensions. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered immediate negotiations focused on securing the release of all remaining hostages held in Gaza, simultaneously outlining a strategy to conquer Gaza City and dismantle Hamas's stronghold. Defense Minister Israel Katz has issued a stark warning, asserting that the complete destruction of Gaza City is a potential outcome if Hamas fails to disarm, release all hostages, and conclude the war on Israel's terms. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) is preparing to release a critical report detailing the alarming situation of famine within Gaza Governorate, including Gaza City. Amidst this, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee preemptively dismissed the IPC's findings, accusing Hamas of starving civilians and highlighting the plight of the hostages. Israeli military preparations are underway, with approximately 60,000 reservists being mobilized for the impending operation to seize Gaza City. Netanyahu emphasized the interconnectedness of defeating Hamas and securing the release of the hostages. Negotiations, mediated by Qatar and Egypt, are progressing, with a proposed ceasefire involving staggered hostage releases. However, Israel insists on a simultaneous release of all captives. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is deepening, with the risk of widespread famine and a devastating impact on civilians. Despite the ongoing negotiations, Israel's commitment to military action remains firm. The conflict continues to escalate, with significant casualties on both sides. The situation remains volatile, and the prospects for a lasting resolution remain uncertain. The international community is closely monitoring the developments, and efforts to achieve a ceasefire are ongoing. The focus remains on securing the release of hostages, alleviating the humanitarian crisis, and ultimately, achieving a sustainable peace. North Korean support for Ukraine conflict, a complex and evolving situation. Recent developments reveal North Korea's significant, yet largely concealed, role in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Multiple news reports detail Pyongyang's deployment of over 10,000 soldiers to support Russia's war effort, primarily concentrated in the Kursk region of Russia. This deployment includes substantial military hardware, such as artillery shells, missiles, and long-range rocket systems, marking a departure from North Korea's traditionally isolated foreign policy. Intelligence assessments suggest that approximately 600 North Korean soldiers have been killed and thousands more wounded during the conflict, highlighting the significant human cost of this intervention. The North Korean soldiers' actions have been characterized as a strategic move, potentially driven by economic incentives, and a desire to expand Pyongyang's international influence. In response to these developments, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has personally overseen a formal ceremony in Pyongyang, commemorating the fallen soldiers and awarding them the title of DPRK, a North Korea hero. During the event, Kim knelt before portraits of the deceased, expressing his gratitude and offering condolences to their families. He also presented medals and embraced a returned soldier, visibly moved by the situation. Simultaneously, Donald Trump has engaged in high-profile talks with both Russian and Ukrainian leaders, aiming to broker a resolution to the conflict. These discussions, while ongoing, have yet to yield substantial progress. Furthermore, Russia has expressed its appreciation for North Korea's contribution, sending a letter of gratitude to Kim Jong-un. Recent reports indicate that Russia is bolstering its support for North Korea, including providing assistance with advanced space and satellite technology in exchange for North Korea's military support. This exchange of technological expertise further complicates the geopolitical landscape. The involvement of North Korea underscores the multifaceted nature of the conflict and the growing influence of various actors in shaping the course of the war. Powell signals potential rate cuts amid trade developments. Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, delivered a significant shift in messaging at the Jackson Hole Economic Summit, bolstering expectations of an interest rate cut in September. This follows recent weakness in the U.S. jobs market and concerns about the inflationary impact of President Trump's tariffs on American goods. Powell acknowledged that risks to inflation remain tilted upwards, while employment faces downside pressure, creating a challenging economic environment. He stated that the effects of the tariffs are now clearly visible, suggesting a relatively short-lived inflationary shift. The Fed chair emphasized that interest rates are already in restrictive territory, dampening economic activity, and that a shift in the balance of risks may warrant adjusting the policy stance. This signals a potential move to stimulate economic growth by lowering borrowing costs. Powell's comments followed a conversation with President Trump, during which the two leaders discussed trade negotiations and potential opportunities for both countries. Alongside the rate cut anticipation, significant trade developments occurred. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the lifting of retaliatory tariffs on a substantial list of American goods, effective September 1st. This move, prompted by a direct request from President Trump, aims to boost the American economy through increased imports. However, Carney maintained the 25% tariff on American steel and aluminum, as well as tariffs on American cars remaining in place. The White House praised Carney's actions, describing them as long overdue. Both sides agreed to intensify discussions on strategic sectors, trade, investment, and security. The Canadian move represents a notable shift in trade relations and underscores the ongoing influence of political considerations on monetary policy decisions. Powell's remarks and the subsequent trade actions collectively indicate a cautious approach to monetary policy, balancing the need to control inflation with the desire to support economic growth. EU-US trade deal developments and discrepancies. Recent developments surrounding the EU-US trade agreement reveal significant discrepancies between President Donald Trump's claims and the actual terms agreed upon. The core of the issue centers around a purported $600 billion gift from the European Union, a claim that has been widely disputed by trade experts and the EU itself. Initial reports suggested this sum represented a lump sum investment available to the US government. However, subsequent clarification reveals a markedly different scenario. The official framework document outlines that European companies intend to invest $600 billion in strategic sectors within the United States over a 2028 timeframe, rather than a direct handout to the US administration. This investment is predicated on European companies' own strategic decisions, not a US government allocation. Furthermore, a separate agreement with Japan has also been subject to misrepresentation. President Trump asserted a $550 billion signing bonus, again a sum intended for unrestricted US investment, while Japanese officials clarified that the figure encompassed a combination of investments, loans, and loan guarantees. The Japanese government emphasized that this investment would comprise only a small percentage of the total, with the US receiving the majority of the profits. These discrepancies highlight a fundamental difference in communication styles between the Trump administration and its international counterparts. The official EU framework document, despite its length, offers no evidence of a $600 billion gift, but does confirm the intent of European companies to invest significantly in the US economy. Trade analysts have consistently pointed out that Trump's assertions were misleading and lacked factual basis. The situation underscores the importance of precise language and verifiable commitments in international trade negotiations. The ongoing debates surrounding the agreement demonstrate the challenges of translating political rhetoric into concrete economic outcomes. The Japanese situation mirrors the EU one, emphasizing the need for transparent communication regarding investment intentions and potential financial arrangements. These events have prompted scrutiny of the Trump administration's approach to trade negotiations and its communication strategies. Alligator Alcatraz's judge orders closure of Trump's Migrant Detention Center. A federal judge has ordered the shutdown of Donald Trump's Alligator Alcatraz migrant detention center in Florida's Everglades, citing severe environmental damage and a failure to adequately assess the project's risks. The ruling, issued by Judge Kathleen Williams, an Obama appointee, mandates the dismantling of the facility within 60 days and prohibits any further construction or detainee intake. The decision stems from a lawsuit filed by environmental groups and a Native American tribe concerned about the irreversible harm to the ecologically sensitive Everglades. The judge cited a 1960s airport proposal rejection as precedent, highlighting a consistent, decades-long commitment from Florida governors, senators, and national leaders to protect the Everglades. The facility's construction, utilizing repurposed FEMA trailers and tents, was deemed a violation of this long-standing pledge. Key criticisms included a lack of stakeholder consultation and a failure to evaluate environmental risks. The facility's operation, staffed by deputized IC task force officers, was criticized for its impact on endangered species and the overall ecosystem. The lawsuit highlighted the facility's location adjacent to Everglades National Park, Big Cypress National Preserve, and the tribal lands of the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida, emphasizing the ongoing struggle for land and rights. The judge's order underscored the importance of accountability and oversight, questioning the division of responsibility between federal and state agencies. Despite the ruling, Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin defended the project, arguing it was necessary to address the influx of migrants and fulfill the administration's mandate. However, the judge's decision was widely celebrated by environmental groups like Friends of the Everglades, who had opposed the project since 1969. U.S. Representative Frederica Wilson echoed this sentiment, calling the facility cruel, careless, and destructive. The lawsuit also included a second legal challenge regarding detainee access. The closure represents a significant legal and political setback for the Trump administration's immigration policies and a victory for environmental conservation efforts. FBI conducts search at John Bolton's home amid renewed investigation. The FBI conducted a court-authorized search at former National Security Advisor John Bolton's home and office as part of a renewed investigation into potential violations related to the disclosure of classified information in his 2020 book, The Room Where It Happened. This action immediately drew criticism, with accusations of political targeting from Donald Trump, who has long considered Bolton a political adversary. The investigation stems from a reopened inquiry initiated by the Justice Department. Bolton served as Trump's national security advisor during his first term, but the two have been at odds ever since. Trump previously threatened to jail Bolton over the book, which he claimed portrayed him inaccurately and focused on shaping his media legacy, including reporting on his request to Ukraine and China for assistance in the 2020 election. A previous investigation by the Justice Department under President Biden closed without charges. During the search on Friday morning, the FBI personnel were observed speaking with a person on Bolton's porch and entering his Washington, D.C. home and office. Agents were seen carrying bags of materials, though nothing was removed. The search also extended to Bolton's office. Investigators are exploring the possibility of further leaks as a form of weaponization. Trump expressed his knowledge of the search, suggesting he would be briefed later, and asserted his belief in his ability to initiate law enforcement actions. Vice President J.D. Vance acknowledged the investigation's focus on classified documents, but emphasized concerns about Bolton. Bolton stated he was unaware of the search and was looking into the matter, while his attorney did not immediately respond. The public nature of the search, with FBI agents wearing identifiable jackets and officials telegraphing it on social media, has fueled speculation of political motivation. This action aligns with a broader pattern of retribution by Trump and his government against perceived political enemies, including former officials, members of Congress, and prosecutors. Recent investigations include the FBI's search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate for classified documents and a grand jury investigation into New York Attorney General Letitia James. The investigation into Bolton's activities is ongoing, and the FBI's public approach to the search has intensified scrutiny and raised concerns about potential political interference. Trump's civil fraud penalty overturned by appeals court. A New York appeals court has overturned former President Donald Trump's $500 million civil fraud penalty, a decision stemming from a lengthy trial, where he was found liable for misrepresenting the value of his Trump Organization properties. Initially, Judge Arthur Engoron ordered Trump to pay a staggering $355 million, with interest, to compensate for the fraudulent practices. However, the appeals court, comprised of 5 judges, determined that the fine was excessive and potentially violated constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishments. specifically referencing the Eighth Amendment. The ruling followed a year of deliberations after oral arguments, revealing disagreement among the judges regarding the merits of the original lawsuit, brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. While several judges acknowledged James's lawful power in pursuing the case, one advocated for its dismissal, and two suggested a new trial with a narrower scope. Despite this division, the court unanimously agreed to eliminate the massive financial penalty. The Attorney General's office plans to appeal the decision to the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals, emphasizing that the core finding of fraud remains valid. They contend that the judge's decision was within their lawful power in bringing this action. The appeals court upheld the other non-monetary penalties imposed by Judge Engoron, including a 3-year ban on Trump serving as a company director and obtaining loans from banks in New York. Trump, in a True Social post, celebrated the ruling as a total victory, claiming the case was a political witch hunt. Eric Trump, also involved in the case, similarly expressed relief after 5 years of legal challenges. The ruling highlights a significant legal battle with substantial implications for Trump's business empire. The case centered on allegations that Trump and his sons misrepresented the value of assets to secure favorable loans, with discrepancies identified in financial statements, including the inflated valuation of his Trump Tower penthouse. The appeals court's decision represents a setback for the state of New York, but it preserves the core liability finding and the non-financial penalties. The Supreme Court allows Trump to block $783 million in NIH grants. The Supreme Court issued a divided ruling Thursday, allowing President Donald Trump to halt nearly $800 million in research grants awarded by the National Institutes of Health and NIH, primarily due to concerns surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives. The decision, a 5-4 split, reflects a significant challenge to the administration's broader efforts to curtail DEI-related funding. The court determined that the district court likely lacked jurisdiction to rule on the individual grants, suggesting those claims should have been filed in the Court of Federal Claims. However, the court acknowledged the district court's authority to rule on the underlying DEI policy. 4 conservative justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh, supported the administration's position entirely, while Chief Justice John Roberts and 3 liberal justices would have entirely blocked the grant cancellations. The administration's argument centered on the grants' alleged promotion of gender ideology and immoral race and sex-based preferences. The court's decision stemmed from an executive order issued by Trump requiring agencies to terminate grants that align with these concerns. Over 700 grants were subsequently canceled by the NIH. 16 states, public health advocacy groups, and affected scientists challenged the cancellations in lower courts, which initially sided with the challengers, temporarily restoring the flow of funds. Justice Amy Coney Barrett's concurrence offered the most detailed explanation, stating the district court's decision likely prevailed and that future plaintiffs may benefit from this outcome. The administration highlighted a Thailand grant concerning Buddhism and HIV stigma, and an Alzheimer's study involving traffic pollution mixtures, arguing they were irreparably harmed by forced payouts with no guarantee of recovery. The court's reliance on a previous ruling allowing Trump to freeze millions in teacher shortage grants, also based on DEI concerns, underscored the precedent being set. The dissenting justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, criticized the decision as Calvin Ball jurisprudence, highlighting the court's apparent lack of consistent rules. She emphasized the abrupt cancellation of hundreds of millions in life-saving biomedical research. The underlying dispute involved alleged violations of federal rulemaking procedures by the IH. Public health groups argued the administration's actions represented racial discrimination and a failure to explain its reasoning. This case further amplifies the Supreme Court's role in adjudicating emergency appeals brought by the Trump administration. Habba's U.S. attorney appointment challenged, raising concerns about administration's practices. A federal judge in Pennsylvania has ruled that Alina Habba, Donald Trump's former lawyer, is not legally serving as the acting U.S. attorney for New Jersey, triggering significant legal and administrative uncertainty surrounding the Trump administration's appointments of top Justice Department officials. Judge Matthew Brand's ruling stems from challenges by defendants in 2 criminal cases who argued Habba's appointment violated federal law regarding U.S. attorney appointments. The judge's opinion emphasizes the administration's circumvention of the standard congressional confirmation process. The ruling highlights a pattern of the Trump administration utilizing loopholes and interim status extensions under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, FVRA, to place individuals in acting U.S. attorney positions, as seen with Bilo Asali in California and Sigal Chattah in Nevada. Several other U.S. attorneys face similar expiring terms. The Justice Department's argument that the president has broad authority to appoint whomever he chooses has been contested, with Judge Brand questioning the administration's reliance on informal practices. Defendants Julian Gerard Jr. and Julian Gerard III dismissed their drug-related charges, and Cesar Pina sought to dismiss his fraud indictment, both citing Habba's unlawful appointment. The judge's opinion underscores the importance of adhering to established legal procedures. The Justice Department intends to appeal the ruling, but the judge suggested he would tee up the decision for appellate review. The situation has led to delays in plea hearings and sentencing, as well as the postponement of grand jury indictments in New Jersey. The broader implications extend beyond New Jersey, potentially impacting other acting U.S. attorneys appointed under the FVRA. Legal experts suggest that if the administration continues to disregard established protocols, it could create a system where agencies grind to a halt. Democrats have placed holds on Trump's U.S. attorney picks, preventing full Senate votes. The Justice Department's approach contrasts with the judge's insistence on rule-based governance. The judge's final statement suggests Habba may ultimately be appointed as the U.S. attorney for New Jersey, despite the current legal challenges. This situation underscores the ongoing tension between the executive and judicial branches regarding the appointment of key Justice Department officials. U.S. Visa Review intensified scrutiny of foreign holders. The United States government, under the leadership of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and building upon the anti-immigration policies of the Trump administration, is undertaking a comprehensive review of the records of over 55 million U.S. visa holders. This initiative aims to identify individuals who may have violated the terms of their entry or stay within the country. The review encompasses a wide range of potential infractions, including overstays, criminal activity, threats to public safety, involvement in terrorist activities, and support for terrorist organizations. A key component of the review involves continuous vetting of visa holders, with State Department officers actively monitoring social media for indications of hostility toward American citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. Furthermore, officers are tasked with identifying individuals advocating for, aiding, or supporting designated foreign terrorists, as well as those perpetrating unlawful anti-Semitic harassment or violence. Following previous actions, such as pausing the issuance of worker visas for truck drivers and imposing substantial deposits on tourist and business visas for citizens from Malawi and Zambia, the administration is intensifying its security measures. The review extends to foreign students at U.S. universities who have participated in protests related to the Israel-Gaza conflict, demonstrating a heightened sensitivity to perceived threats to national security. The administration's actions are rooted in a broader strategy to limit immigration and address perceived threats. Previously, the administration revoked the legal status of over 500,000 migrants and has expressed intentions to end birthright citizenship. The current visa review represents a significant escalation of these efforts, signaling a determination to rigorously assess the backgrounds and activities of foreign nationals with U.S. visas, prioritizing national security concerns. The overarching goal is to ensure that the benefits of American society are not afforded to those deemed to harbor anti-American ideologies. Trump visits U.S. Park Police, reinforces support amid security concerns. Former U.S. President Donald Trump made a visit to a U.S. Park Police facility in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, a move interpreted as a demonstration of support for law enforcement amid ongoing concerns regarding security and potential unrest. The visit, details of which were initially reported by CNN, occurred at a facility that plays a crucial role in protecting the White House and surrounding areas. During the visit, Trump engaged with Park Police officers, offering what appeared to be words of encouragement and gratitude for their service. While the specifics of their conversation were not immediately disclosed, the action underscores Trump's continued efforts to cultivate relationships with law enforcement agencies, a key component of his political strategy. The timing of the visit is particularly significant given recent debates surrounding policing and public safety, as well as heightened security measures in the lead-up to upcoming political events. The Park Police, responsible for the safety of the White House complex, have been operating under increased scrutiny following a series of incidents involving protests and demonstrations in the nation's capital. The visit served to reassure both the officers and the public that the administration remains committed to supporting those tasked with maintaining order and security. The visit highlights the ongoing tension between differing perspectives on policing and the role of law enforcement in a democratic society. The demonstration of support from a prominent political figure like Trump reinforces the importance of these relationships and signals a desire to maintain a strong partnership. The event is being closely watched as a potential indicator of future policy directions related to public safety. Trump's judicial appointments, a strategy focused on conservative succession, recent judicial appointments by President Trump are increasingly aligning with his first term's conservative judicial strategy, driven by a desire to secure favorable outcomes for the Supreme Court, particularly regarding potential retirements. Despite initial shifts, the White House is prioritizing nominees resembling those of his first presidency, influenced heavily by the Federalist Society. This approach is aimed at encouraging retirements from Justices Thomas and Alito, along with other conservative jurists, to facilitate the appointment of like-minded successors. The pace of judicial appointments during Trump's second term has been notably slower than after previous presidential elections, with fewer retirements announced. This hesitancy is speculated to be due to concerns among Republican-appointed jurists about potential successor choices, further solidifying the strategy of proactively encouraging retirements. Key figures involved include President Trump, Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and legal advisors such as Michael Fragoso, former counsel to Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, and current private practice attorney. The Federalist Society remains a central influence, providing a network for connections and advancement for conservative legal professionals. Several prominent names are being considered, including U.S. Sen. Mike Lee, a former Alito law clerk, U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer, who represented Trump in the 2024 immunity case, and U.S. Appellate Judges Andrew Oldham, James Ho, and Naomi Rao, all former law clerks to conservative Supreme Court justices. These individuals, along with younger candidates like Sauer, represent a focus on securing a succession of conservative voices on the bench. Stephen Miller recently asserted that the White House is no longer utilizing the Federalist Society for initial screening, yet the broader influence of the organization remains undeniable. Justices Thomas and Alito, both long-standing Federalist Society members, are expected to be targets of this strategy, with Thomas poised to potentially break records for longest-serving Supreme Court justice. The White House's emphasis on loyalty and securing a conservative succession is a core element of its judicial appointment strategy, aiming to shape the composition of the courts for years to come. The Federalist Society's continued involvement, combined with the consideration of younger, well-connected legal professionals, indicates a deliberate and calculated approach to judicial selection. THTMAS-TBSETLY 262 Moardes Laungi OAMFAR XASTLY 262 Moardes. Donald Trump's influence on Ukraine-Russia peace efforts. Donald Trump's persistent efforts to secure a Nobel Peace Prize have significantly disrupted ongoing peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, despite neither side's genuine desire for a settlement. Driven by a vanity-fueled ambition to emulate Barack Obama's previous Nobel win, Trump's actions have created a protracted and largely unproductive situation. The conflict, initiated by Vladimir Putin's miscalculated war of choice, has resulted in over 250,000 Russian casualties, and a desperate need for a victory to justify the extensive losses. Volodymyr Zelensky, recognizing the existential threat to Ukraine's independence and national identity, which Putin seeks to reverse, has reluctantly engaged with Trump's proposals, swallowing his pride to avoid a complete subjugation of his country. The situation is further complicated by Trump's delusional belief that the conflict is solely about territorial gain, overlooking the fundamental issue of national survival for Ukraine. Trump's tactics include directly contacting the Norwegian finance minister to pressure the Nobel Committee, and falsely claiming to have resolved multiple wars. His bizarre pronouncements, such as suggesting Putin desires a deal for me, highlight his detached reality. Despite his influence, both Zelensky and Putin privately view Trump with contempt and are unwilling to compromise their core interests. The protracted nature of the conflict is fueled by Trump's obsessive pursuit of the Nobel Prize, potentially extending the war for years. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, comprised of retired politicians, is largely immune to Trump's influence, and once it becomes clear he won't receive the award, he is likely to shift his attention to other distractions. While Trump continues to peacemaking efforts, the core conflict will likely persist until the situation changes dramatically. The situation remains a complex interplay of geopolitical ambitions, national survival, and the eccentric influence of a former president. Thaksin acquitted in royal insult case, facing further legal challenges. Former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra has been acquitted of charges of insulting the monarchy, a case stemming from an interview he gave to a South Korean newspaper in 2015. The criminal court dismissed the case, citing a lack of sufficient evidence and the limited nature of the video clip presented as evidence. The court noted that the prosecution failed to prove the clip was unaltered and that Thaksin's statements were not specifically directed at the then reigning king Bhumibol Adulyadej. Furthermore, the court observed bias among some prosecution witnesses. The acquittal represents a significant victory for Thaksin and his supporters, who view the charges as politically motivated. Thaksin himself expressed relief and stated his intention to contribute to the country's benefit. The case was brought by the military, reflecting the ongoing tension between conservative forces and the Shinawatra clan. However, Thaksin's legal troubles are far from over. His daughter, Paedongtarn Shinawatra, who currently leads the Pheu Thai party, faces a separate constitutional court decision regarding an alleged ethics violation related to a leaked telephone conversation with Cambodia's former leader. This case could lead to her removal from office. Additionally, Thaksin is scheduled to face a Supreme Court ruling in September concerning his 6-month hospital detention prior to his release on parole. A favorable outcome could result in the time served counting towards a previous jail term for abuse of power and conflicts of interest. Over 280 prosecutions under Section 112 of the Criminal Code, often used to silence political dissent, have been brought against Thaksin and his associates. Despite his legal challenges and self-imposed exile, Thaksin remains a powerful figure in Thai politics, wielding influence through the Pheu Thai party. The legal battles surrounding Thaksin and his family continue to be a central element of Thai politics, impacting the country's political landscape and future direction. Supporters outside the courthouse celebrated the acquittal, expressing confidence in Thaksin's commitment to the nation. China condemns U.S. tariffs, advocates India-China cooperation. Recent developments in international relations highlight a growing rift between the United States and India, coupled with a significant shift in diplomatic efforts toward strengthening ties between India and China. The United States has imposed a 50% tariff on Indian imports, alongside existing 25% tariffs on oil and weapons purchases from Russia, scheduled to take effect on August 27th. Chinese ambassador to India, Su Feihong, vehemently condemned this action, characterizing it as bullying, and argued that Washington is utilizing tariffs as a bargaining chip to extract exorbitant prices. This escalation follows India's increased imports of inexpensive Russian crude oil since the Ukraine conflict, which has strained relations with the U.S. and impeded trade negotiations. India defends these purchases, citing its status as a major energy importer and its responsibility to safeguard the financial well-being of its citizens. Notably, the Biden administration had previously urged India to purchase Russian oil to stabilize global energy markets. Amidst this tension, a rapid thaw in India-China relations is evident. Following a 2020 clash in Galwan, Ladakh, the two nations have begun a gradual process of normalization. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently visited Delhi, advocating for India and China to view each other as partners rather than adversaries or threats. Ambassador Su Feihong echoed this sentiment, framing India and China as double engines of economic growth in Asia, emphasizing that unity benefits the world. He further extended an invitation to Indian enterprises to invest in China, requesting a fair, just and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese companies operating in India. Ambassador Xu expressed concern about tariff wars and trade wars, disrupting the global economic system, and highlighted the need to uphold the multilateral trading system centered around the World Trade Organization, WTO. He anticipates a positive impact from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to China to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, signaling renewed impetus for China-India relations. The situation underscores a broader geopolitical shift, with implications for global trade and international cooperation.